Hello, this is Maniacal Cackle, and this event for the Malifaux World Series, I'm doing videos that's slightly different from what I've done before. So last event, I was doing videos to explain different master choices and what master I thought was really good into each pool. And so rather than doing the same thing again, I thought this time I'm going to do a deep dive into list building and going through some of my thinking behind the list. So that'll hopefully act as some background information when I post the videos of the gameplay. You can see what was the thinking behind what I was doing, what I was trying to set up. So this pool is corner symbols of authority on this map. And you just gotta note how much brutal severe there is on this map. Corner symbols is already a very, very demanding strategy and setup. And to throw in this much severe terrain and tricky choke points, it's a very, very demanding map. So I think all the lists we see this week for the series are going to be very much defined by how brutal it is to play on this map. And the scheme pool is not generous either. It's Detonate Charges, Vendetta, Deathbeds, Let Them Bleed, and Spread Them Out. And so those are some killy schemes that sometimes are pretty much an auto take, but in a symbols pool, it can be a bit tricky. So Detonate Charges, of course, it depends on your crew. Yanlo 2, for instance, can make extra scheme markers, which makes it a little bit easier, but then you're spending a master activation scoring Detonate, which can be awkward. Hucksters, if you're in 10 Thunders, want to look out for those. Vendetta, that's really, really influencing list building, because if you have lots of high-cost killable models, so they don't have to be easy to kill, but for instance, the Dead Rider is a big consideration, is that if you take Dead Rider into a pool with Vendetta, there's a very high chance that they're just going to kill it for 2 points. So that's definitely a consideration. Deathbeds, very difficult on symbols because you can't use the strategy to score the second point. Or if you can use the strategy, it means you're doing very badly. Let Them Bleed, again, very difficult on corner symbols because the game is likely to be very cagey, there's likely to be models running all over the map, and guaranteeing that for the second point that you have everyone bleeding is very difficult, and for the first point, guaranteeing that you have the 2 important models bleeding is also difficult. Spread Them Out depends. It's very AP intensive, but if you can efficiently get those ski markers down, you're already running all over the map. So for some crews, Spread Them Out is going to be really, really good. Some crews, it's going to be really bad. It's just extra effort on top of what they're already doing. So that's the pool. Let's look at what I am thinking of building. So I've declared Yanlo, and I'm into Guild. And for those of you who haven't heard before, I quite like Yanlo into corner symbols because of Ashigaru, who's often summoned by Toshiro, because they can guard symbols really, really well. And so anytime I'm against a faction without Don't Mind Me on symbols, I'm at least considering, is this an Ashigaru matchup? Am I just going to throw Ashigaru onto the table and say, can you make your way through my models and then pick up the scheme marker? Is very demanding. So either Yanlo 1 or Yanlo 2, and I am against Lucius. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be Lucius 2. He's much better at corner symbols. He's much more popular. Lucius 1 is actually really, really good as well, I think. But he's not as popular, so I assume he won't be that. In addition to that, look at all this blocking terrain. This is just a map that's very doable for Lucius, although these destructible boxes are a concern for him, so that's something to watch out for as Lucius players, that half of the map, all the blocking terrain is destructible, which is a good way to get into trouble relying on that. So I've considered about 4 or 5 different builds, and so I've kind of tried to summarize it up. On the left here, we've got a Yanlo path for being Yanlo 1, and on the right, Yanlo 2. So, of course, Yanlo, at least how I build him, I'm not a very good Yanlo player, but when I build him for the original title, I don't think he has anything I feel is an auto take. I'm usually building to the pool when on the rare occasion I play him. For Yanlo 2, he relies on having minions to get around, and for me, I default to Komainu. In some cases, you might want to consider Gokudo. And one thing that I was struggling with here is while Yanlo 2 is very, very good at Detonate Charges, he's also can make scheme markers, so he's better at deathbeds if I did want to try to go that route. But Lucius 2 is very, very, very good at hunting and killing models, so if he decides he wants to kill my 2 Komainu, then suddenly my Yanlo's stranded, which is okay. He'll teleport back to the base, to the Ashigaru, but in this pool, I'm really relying on the master to help score. And speaking of scoring, Monos and Yin for both builds, you gotta take Monos and Yin, I think, for corner symbols. If you're any other keyword other than Transmortis in Rezzers, I think you're considering Monos and Yin when it comes to corner symbols. So every other keyword is already considering these models. So the fact that you can get them in keyword for this pool is just phenomenal. Like, I think I would imagine every Yanlo player would bring Monos and Yin into these pools. As I said, one of the reasons I pick Yanlo into these pools is Ashigaru. So normally I play Yanlo 2, and I take Toshiro and a Gravedigger, and they summon. Which is quite demanding. It requires a 12 of Crows, often requires some Soul Stones, it requires a TN for the Gravedigger to make the corpse marker. But there's some payoff. And then in addition to the Ashigaru to work with, you have the Gravedigger and Doshiro. They have good heals if the Ashigaru need more backup, etc. So I really, really like it. It's a real big draw for Yanlo 2 for me. But then note, that's actually already a full crew there. So this 8 models here would already form a full crew, and a shout out to the Soul Porter as well, because he for some reason has a 2-inch engage, which is wild to me, so he's actually really good at symbol denial as well. It just acts as an AP tax that they have to work that little bit harder to get your models off the markers before they score them, which corner symbols, anything you can do to make life harder and more work is just really, really positive. For Yanlo 1, I've got I'm thinking 3 Ashigaru, which works out to be the same number of stones. It's a bit more fragile. You've not got the Gravedigger and Toshiro there to heal him up, but it's not as card intensive. And while Yanlo 2 can be drawing 2 cards a turn, Yanlo 1 doesn't have that card draw to fall back on, so I just feel a lot more inclined to go with the Ashigaru. So that's the base comparison, but Yanlo 2 has to bring in a couple minions for him to ride around on, whereas Yanlo 1 doesn't. So after building this list over here, I had about 18 stones left. Oh, sorry, actually Toshiro's slightly more expensive because you have to put the Whisper on him, so that's an issue. So with 18 stones left, I've got a few considerations. One is Dead Rider. Dead Rider's pretty good here. He gives extra mobility to Yanlo. You can partner him with Yanlo so that they can scheme run together, and what that means is Yanlo is probably a little bit more likely to survive. I am worried about him just deciding, you know what, I am going to kill your master. But it is weak to Vendetta. It gives a really easy let them bleed target as well, whereas, for instance, Monos is healing back up a bit easier. Although here I guess it's Monos and Yin, so either way Monos is part of it. But yeah, so I just feel he's not quite what I'm looking for in terms of scoring these points. Spread them out is quite AP intensive. You don't want a rider trying to score the spread them out unless it's mechanical rider. I also considered Chiaki. Chiaki's interesting because she can put in a reliquary onto a model, and then you can use a new Guardian action to throw that reliquary onto Yanlo. This is significant because its demise is reliant on reliquaries. So if I want Yanlo to survive the game, I think I should be hiring Chiaki. That said, I thought about it and I thought, oh, is it really that important that Yanlo survives the game? Killing him doesn't help score any of these points. You can't let them bleed off of Yanlo for the first point. So if they really want to chase my Yanlo around the board and get him off the board, instead of running around scoring points. That feels like a win to me. So that's fine. So I didn't feel like I need Chiaki. Kenshiro is another one to consider. His reliquary makes models unimpeded, which is obviously really big on this map. So Kenshiro was a huge consideration for me when I was thinking of being Yonlo too. And this is a problem because the Kamainu get slowed down by those rivers. They are move 7 with 3 AP, so it's not too big a deal. But it does feel a bit better to have Kenshiro there. But then the list starts to feel really inefficient. You're doing like 12 stones of Kamainu, you're doing 7 stones for Kenshiro. That's already 19 stones that you're spending just as like a tax to have your crew even functional. So yeah, that didn't feel that good to me. And while Kenshiro is a great model in some situations, his action that can target a master to make them discard 2 random cards is really, really good. He can be a min 3 beater if you've got that ram trigger, and that will ignore armor. A really rare thing for Rezzers. But on corner, I don't see him doing as much work as I'd like. So, and then I also had this weird idea, 2 Gwisen, and like it's a bit of a meme because Gwisen are overpowered, etc., etc. But that's not why I want them. I don't want them for the 7 health and Corporeal Vengeance to take the hit. Oh, that's nice. What I want them for is they have the Trail of Gore action, which is relatively rare in Rezzers. We don't have that many models you can take into just any crew that will eat ski markers. And Lucius, too, drops ski markers all over the place. It's one of the reasons to play Lucius, is he drops ski markers at a distance of 12 inches without having to do anything. So by being Lucius 2 in this pool, suddenly Detonate Charges is online. Deathbeds, if he can find a way to do markers, is online. Spread Them Out is online. So all these schemes are suddenly online for Lucius 2 just because he exists and just because he activates, which is not something I'm a fan of. So for me, I did end up saying, you know what, I'm going to go with the Gwisen. And so that's how I built the crew this time. It's what you might call modular list building. What I've done here is I've identified a bunch of roles and I've made concrete packages. So like the Gwisen are here to deal with Trail of Gore and eating ski markers. The Ashigaru are here for defense. Monos, Yin, and Yanlo are all independent operators to go score me some points. So that's I identified a bunch of roles and I put in enough models to be there. Sometimes you'll have other styles of list building. Sometimes you need like crew-wide synergy, but in this case, crew-wide synergy isn't what I was going for. I was going for, okay, I'm understanding that there's different jobs I need. I need offense to go score the points, so I need my scheme runners up top. Then I need my defense to deny. That's the Ashigaru and the Gwisen. And then, but you should still take a step back and say, okay, I've dealt all this modular stuff. How does the crew work overall? And so, does this crew look like a functional crew now that I've built it? So one thing is to check is how TN hungry is the crew, and Yanlo's pretty TN hungry. Monos needs 1 for his leap. Yin needs 1 for her Dark Bargain action. So you've got 3 important TNs, 3 important models doing TNs, which can be a little bit high, but also I think these models are so efficient that it's worth it. That's really good. Then down here you've got your Gwisen who can do that Trail of Gore. I do have then 15 plus 12, 27 stones on defense, potentially, but the Gwisen also can progress up the table. One of them can run alongside Yanlo, and his treacherous path action actually means that he can move the Gwisen across the board really efficiently. So that could be really good. So that actually leaves me a lot of options with where I want to put my models on the board. So I really like that. And another thing is that now I didn't actually design this crew for Take the Hit, but now looking at the crew, I have 5 Take the Hits to work with. And if you think that Vendetta's in the pool, Let Them Bleed's in the pool, both of those require targeting and killing specific models. And that gets really messy when I've got my Ashigaru and my Gwisen that are potentially helping mitigate that. The Ashigaru probably won't be in position for it, but then having the Gwisen on top of that does offer a lot of promise. And they also, the Ashigaru can self-heal with their bonus action, the Gwisen can self-heal with their tear off a bite trigger. It's not actually reliable to ensure my whole team is damaged, which again, the let them bleed not counting summons is another reason to maybe go the direction of Ashigaru, and not the summoned Ashigaru, because I want these ones to count against the opponent's let them bleed. So what I've built, I think this list, it has all the individual components I want. It has the big picture that this crew looks like it should work together, that there's synergies between the models, but they're not completely dependent on each other. The list doesn't just fall over if some of them die, like the other list, like I was not feeling good if those Komainu died on the first 2 turns. Because one other thing that is worth mentioning here is the opponent is Lucius, and Lucius has a model I believe called a False Witness, which effectively prevents enemy interacts within 2 inches. And it's manipulative and has 5 health. So if he decides that he's just going to camp one of those on every marker, like I've decided to do with my Ashigaru, I need to move them off. I can kill them, but it's not very efficient to grind through all 3 of them and kill all of them. And both the Yonlos have the means to move enemy models, so that's one of the reasons I want the Yonlo on scheme running duty, whereas sometimes he would put them on defensive duty or whatever else, or killing duty or whatever. But because I'm worried about him guarding his symbols really effectively, I want to be able to move enemy models in addition to having kill options. So that's... I hope that all makes sense. Feel free to put any questions you may have. I'll try to keep an eye on YouTube, but more commonly I will respond to this on the weird forums, where I will also post this. And let me know if you'd like to see anything done differently for the next cruise. I think that this is a 6-round event, and I will try to do a video for every round explaining crew building and what I am trying to accomplish and why I'm making the choices I am with the models that I'm hiring. Have a good one.